Haven't done this one in a while. You could say that we are across the stars, or you could say we're moose too far. But for the first time in over a year, I checked, actually. Over a year since we have done one of these. I'm back tonight, Friday night. Happy Good Friday to all you out there. Discussing Star Wars and Dune with Ian. Welcome back, man. It's been a long time, but got a lot to chat about and a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, being over a year is a surprise. I thought for sure. I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, it's been maybe 8 months, 9 months, but a year, that's a surprise for sure.
Well, we've talked semi-regularly during that time and have touched base as best as we can, living on opposite sides of the planet or across the stars, pun intended. You can't see on my end, but it's actually nighttime out, and on your end, it's bright and early in the morning. So it's 2 different days: Friday night here, Saturday where Ian is, and this is just sort of going to be an organic conversation that people can follow along with. We're not going to look to hit bullet points necessarily for 100 different topics or whatever. We're just going to sort of chat and hang out. And before we dive into any of the topics I have on screen, I just got to ask, man, when's the last time you played a Star Wars video game of any sort, and what would that have been?
You know what? I actually almost picked up the Dark Forces Remastered.
I've heard nothing but amazing things about it.
I was looking at it. I'm like, man, it's been a while since I played a Star Wars game. So I was looking at it yesterday and almost got it. But judging from... let's have a look. I can actually tell you the exact time, and it's been longer than I thought. The last game that I was playing was Star Wars Fallen Order 2, Jedi Survivor, which incredible game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know some people didn't really get into it, which it's everyone has their own reason. But I was playing that in August, and since then, I think my last game actually was Star Wars Empire at War. The strategy game, and that's a classic. Love that. But it's not a bad time for Star Wars games outside of the Battlefront Classics re-release. I don't know if you followed along with how that went.
We've been following that one weekly on the channel, and wow, you talk about having an easy tap in and completely butchering, and then some. And then not only do you butcher it, you basically commit fraud and steal, and it's those are the not fun parts of being a Star Wars fan, and sadly these sorts of things seem to happen more often than they should.
Yeah, the alienation of the Star Wars fan base, even the Star Wars creators, it's not new. This has been going on since the expanded universe novels, right? Where authors weren't getting the pay that they deserved. And then when we're looking at KOTOR remake based off the Aspire mod, and it was going to be incredible, and all the fans are ready for it. And it's fan passion, to create something incredible for other fans. And it's sad to see that, those of us who have grown up with Star Wars and loved Star Wars through and through, the goods and the bads, despite the bads, it's sad to see that still seems the common practice.
Yeah. It sucks because we had... we were kind of building up towards content around the Battlefront re-release, right? Like Johnny and I's inside joke on the channel since it started basically was how much we used to play Battlefront 2 back in the day when we were younger. And it was a weekly thing. Every Thursday we'd meet up and we'd be playing Battlefront. And we thought we would be bringing that to the channel for a few episodes. And at least in that way, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I know they're attempting to patch certain things, but no matter what you do, the dishonesty about it all is soured the entire process.
Yeah, there's trust in creators, and that trust seems to be dwindling again. And for a little while, like in the movie industry for Star Wars, that trust was hurt several years ago. And for the TV series, it wasn't really hurt. Book of Boba Fett was a little sour, but at the same time, Andor was probably some of the best Star Wars that's been created in well over 10 years. And so that was going up, and that's been an improvement. And then it's been really sad to see that go down so suddenly on the video game front, on several fronts, even because KOTOR as well had its sour news for a little while. And then we also canceled games, and it's not been, it's been a roller coaster of a past couple of years for sure. And yeah.
Canceled Mando game. I'll be honest, I don't know if I was going to be over the moon for a single player Mando game. I know when the rumors first came out about that game, there was the talks of it being like the Division and being like an online 4-player co-op where you customize your armor and go on online missions together. That type of Mandalorian game I'd be very intrigued with. Just a linear story Mando game, though. I don't know. I'm not really for that. It's the kind of the one knock I have on the Jedi Survivor and oh my god, what was the first one? Fallen Order. Yeah. It's basically a linear story, right? Like you're playing through it, but there's not a lot that you can do to change the events of what's happening. And like I actually got the second game sitting right here. I haven't beat it yet, but I've seen the story, so like I know what happens. Great game, but I think Star Wars fans for many generations have loved the choose your own adventure style game. Now it doesn't need to be as open as say like Knights of the Old Republic is, which I think is the dream. But I think you need some variety in there. And like obviously you're gonna get that if Star Wars Eclipse ever sees the light of day. The last couple updates on that have been positive, so that's good. But other than that, man, it seems very linear. Maybe we get the Knights of the Old Republic remake eventually. I know the last update on that was a positive one for once, but
yeah,
still sounds a long way off because of everything that's happened.
I don't know if I'd actually call KOTOR open. Like it is, you have the ability, but it's kind of a 50-50. You go one way or the other way. Fallen Order, I on one front, I think that everything's too multiplayer today. And I've actually been enjoying having the single player adventure in Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. And the characters are well written. Marin is an incredible character. You get to certain sequences in Jedi Survivor where it's heart racing. It's incredible. It's action. It's Star Wars, and I really, really, really dove deep into Jedi Survivor, and it was an incredible experience for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and even despite not having the choices of light or dark, and although Star Wars is built on this light and dark side dichotomy, the ability to choose not being there didn't hurt it for me. But I'm always open to the idea of having that opportunity, even if it's a pivotal moment where you make the choice light or dark, and then it's the last chapter goes in a different direction. That would work with me, But it looks like what they're trying to do with that was trying to build up Cal as an on-screen character, and I know that a lot of the fans have actually been like typecasting individuals as who could play as Cal, which is funny because the actor himself is Cal, so I don't think there needs to be another casting choice. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. But I'd be open for it. And right now, that era of Star Wars, there's a need for on-screen presence. And it seems with the Acolyte, the way that the fans are looking at the Acolyte, I say fans, I'm tempted to use the word haters right now because it's been extremely negative. And a lot of it is, these aren't the characters we want. This is High Republic. It's you and I had issue with the freedom that Disney took with the sequel series. and overriding the EU. The High Republic is that open ground where Disney can be creative and can have fun without making us angry by rewriting things.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because like for years I've heard, oh my God, just do something new. Just do something new. We don't need the same thing over and over again. We don't need to retread this. We don't need a recasting of that character. So they go to do something new that's not even affected by the High Republic books, because I think there's really only a couple characters carried over from there. It's not affected by any of your current movies or TV series. And some of the biggest things I see is, well, we better get lots of Yoda or I'm out. It's like, what are you like?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what they do for some of these people. It will never be okay. No matter what they make, they will never be okay with it. That's just the I guess the category they've put themselves in. And sometimes it's intentional, because, hate sells. You make a YouTube video about something toxic and controversial, it's going to get shared way more than anything positive that you end up discussing. That's just the bullshit way things work these days. But I like, for me personally, I really liked everything I saw with the Acolyte. I don't want to dive too far into that just yet, because I wanted to bring up Andor. But I will say this in terms of the Acolyte. Like, for me, I love the idea of new characters. I love the fact that I recognize some of the performers from other things. It looks, and as far as I know, this is the closest production to a Andor level production that they've done. It's not very stagecraft based. A lot of it's real sets, real locations. I don't think they had the budget Andor had per se, but it's the closest type of production to Andor is what I've read. And that excites me, because I got to tell you, we've been revisiting Andor. We're 2 episodes in, and I don't know how you feel about this, man. I know you've seen Ahsoka since then. I know you would have seen Mando season 3 since then. I don't know if you ended up continuing with Bad Batch or not.
Still gonna watch the last season.
I've actually watched season 3. I gave up on Bad Batch after like the first 6 or 7 episodes of season 1. And then I saw a trailer for season 3. I'm like, I'm not gonna rewatch anything. I'm gonna just pick up there, and it's been decent. But what I wanted to say is, like, for me, there's still nothing that these guys have done that's anywhere close to the level of Andor, in my opinion. And I never thought I would say that going into watching Andor, but here I sit a couple years removed now, and to me, it's still the pinnacle standout Star Wars series in every facet, whether it's production, lighting, casting, acting, writing, time given for story to develop. I think it excels at all that stuff. Where does Andor sit for you a couple years removed from its premiere now?
I think Andor accomplished something that we wanted after Solo. Solo showed us the mud troopers, like the real, like, ground pounding Imperial soldiers, non-stormtrooper corps. And when everyone saw that sequence, there was the general response of, this is what we want. We want this gritty, muddy, filthy Star Wars. And then we didn't really get much. Not at all. Andor brings it down to the ground again, and brings the grit and brings the Empire back. And something that I think has been lacking for the Empire in terms of visual representation, especially with the new series, they're not menacing. They're comically powerful. But in Andor, you hear the TIE fighter, and I said this when we did the review, and I was like, oh my God, like, you hear the TIE fighter in the distance, and even as like an audience member, you're ducking. You're like, I don't, like, this is terrifying. They are sitting in the middle of a field, and I love how powerful it came off. And despite that, still showed the disorganization, the inner squabbling, which is reticent of the Empire, old and new. This idea of, we're constantly competing within our own ranks to outdo the other. So you get that kind of vicious political system, and it does stand on its own for me. If I had to, and I've talked to people here in Korea about it who are kind of new to Star Wars, like, where do I start? And I'm like, honestly, start with the movies, start with the original, in my opinion. If you want to get into something after that, try Rogue One. And if you really like Rogue One, give Andor a try.
So here, check this out. Jade has seen part of Rogue One at some point, like several years ago, but she doesn't remember the movie at all. So she gets to watch Andor season 1, and then obviously early next year Andor season 2, and then Rogue One, and for her it'd be pretty fresh.
That'll be interesting. You got to let us know how that experience goes. Dustin Pritchard in the chat there just said as well, Andor was great and had the political element that has been missing for most of the new Star Wars movies and shows. Look great seeing both sides operating in the Empire's perspective. That's great summary. Exactly. The inner works of the Imperial politics, getting the ISB, getting who I had hoped would have been Natassi Dalla. She still looks so close to her.
And the name too, right? So like it's not all that far off. And yeah, Jade hasn't been introduced to that character yet, but like her whole arc in Andor is fantastic. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I've rewatched Andor since you and I were doing it. So for me, a lot of this is very fresh, taking it all in again. And is it Marva? Marva, I believe, is Andor's. I gotta watch what I say here. Yeah. We'll say protector. And just watching her in the first 2 episodes too, like the performance is great. Which, by the way, Jade noticed, and I did not notice this, that she played the crazy ass fucking aunt from Harry Potter that was making him hide in the closet. Did not know that when we were watching it the first time.
Yeah.
So
great actress. That TV show, just the casting, perfect.
Lots of Game of Thrones in there, even Lord of the Rings people as well. Yeah.
The casting, Star Wars has been doing good with casting, and even like we'll get into the Acolyte, but there are some casting choices there that are supreme, and I'm really looking forward to when we get to that eventually. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to know, like, Andor has just been amazing. That there's this part in the second episode. I know you and I discussed it when we were doing our review series for it, where trying to pull up the character's name. Serial Karn is giving this speech to the unit that's going out for Cassian, and it's just like so fucking cringeworthy, and all the officers clearly feel that way too. And he's just like, he's such a weird social character. Like, he's clearly antisocial. He doesn't handle public situations very well. It's just not the type of story you expect to see in like a Star Wars movie and or show, and yet it's one of the better parts of the show all the way through. So I just forgot how cringy that speech was until seeing it again.
One thing I really liked about his speech, especially Serial Karn, the character, is that he's kind of reminiscent of the Moffs. If you can imagine, like, the captains, the Moffs, as their juniors, that's the character who becomes, someone like Captain Piet, who is sniveling and like trying to get their way up. And they're the ones who get there because instead of being in the front, they're second from the front, and they're going to push the person in front of them to get the job done. And that person dies, and they assume the position, and then they get promoted. Like, that's that kind of character. And that's what makes him so real, I think, is that he really is the embodiment of this person who's completely disillusioned to the reality, right? And is absolutely blindly in favor of this imperial system and will go to all ends to get that promotion.
Just being looking at the first 2 episodes as a whole again, spending time on Ferrix again, just if you've gone and you've watched Ahsoka or Mando, like, I'm sorry, but there's such a difference between filming in a real place and being over reliant on stagecraft to create your entire, geographical location for you. Like, Ferrex feels like you're actually there, man. Like, it looks and feels real because it's, in part real. And I feel like so much of the new Star Wars material has missed that. Like, obviously, I'm assuming the finale would be the most fresh episode for you. It still is for me, other than these two that we've just watched. Jade hasn't seen it, so I got to watch what I say. But like, Ferrex has this community feel to it, right? Like, and I don't think any other Star Wars property that has done things in the Disney era has done a good job of making anything feel like that. You don't feel like the pilots, the X-Wing pilots or whatever in the sequel trilogy are close, or that there's any camaraderie, and like you do get that in this show. And like, hats off to Tony Gilroy on that, not just for lobbying for shooting in real places, but actually having layers to your story.
The one thing about Ferrex that the settings in general in Andor actually that really appealed to me, it's like, I don't know how to explain it other than saying there's a taste to it. When you're on Ferrex, your mouth is dry. Like, you feel the dryness, the heat, this lack of water, and you're like, man, like, this is a grimy, dusty place. And then they move on to the next set. You're in this beautiful paradise, and you feel great and fine, and you kind of feel status normal. And then you end up in this lush, well, not lush, it's well, I guess lush is the right word. The hillsides in this green little area, and you feel cold and you feel moisture. Like, as a viewer, you can feel the difference in the sets. And I think that's something that the filming in Tunisia would allow the sets of Tatooine to provide, that real desert, that believable desert. And that is the value that practical has over these screen backdrops, where you can act as much as you want. You can act being in a dust storm, but being in a dust storm is totally different. You will flinch in a very realistic way. And as we've recently, I think it's become more normal for people, like consumers, to know things about like the what's the valley called? When you see somebody like Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, what's the word for it? Uncanny valley, right? This uncanny valley of that doesn't look right, and my brain can see that. I don't necessarily recognize it, but my brain does. And with such a small reaction difference between flinching in a dust storm and flinching on a virtual set, your brain kind of picks up on that with enough cues that getting a practical set is necessary for some of this.
Yeah, practical versus over reliance on CG is going to be a wonderful conversation to end our show on here in a little bit when we get to Dune. And I think there's, with any project, there's pros and cons, right? So I just think Andor's, it's funny because a lot of the fan base cries over there being no lightsabers in Andor, and it doesn't have that fantasy feel, but like, it's not supposed to. This is your ground troop show, basically.
It's the reality of the galaxy, the majority of the galaxy.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I loved it. So, and I'm glad we're getting more of it. We're going to watch through the Acolyte trailer here. We'll pause it every 20, 25 seconds or so we don't get shut down. But this is what they put out. Let's take a look.
Close your eyes. Your eyes can deceive you. We must not trust them. Tell me what comes into your mind.
Life. Balance. I see fire.
No pause there. every time I see this, I hear the girl say icy fire, like ICY, and I'm like, what is icy fire? Oh, she sees fire. Oh man.
Yeah. Hey, we got Trinity from the Matrix here.
Yes. Carrie Ann Moss.
Carrie Ann Moss, indeed, and she's about to do some pretty badass stuff. Just at like this point of the trailer, we're at the 37-second mark, and it doesn't look like we got taken down, so that's good. But like it feels more lived in. It feels more real than some of the other stuff we got. Like, I loved the story of Kenobi. I had no issue with it, but my God, the budget cutting that was done on that show to just do it as quickly as they could and not bother with building much of anything really, and being over reliant on stagecraft really brought down the quality of that show, in my opinion. This has a real feel to it. And like I dig the concept. I mean, we're only 37 seconds into this trailer, but I know you watched it before we came on here. But like, obviously, this show is taking place in a couple of different time periods, and like I dig what we see so far.
The one thing I really like about the set design so far is she's coming into the city. She passes underneath this gate, and what I really have enjoyed in the recent Star Wars productions is this return to the origins of the inspirations of Star Wars, right? We have this really Kurosawa samurai kind of approach, and the gate she goes through is based off of the Shinto gate that you popularly see in some like anime, things like that, based on the Shinto gate. And I really am enjoying seeing that revival in Star Wars, this kind of return to the art form and the extension of the art form, and it's good to see that they're going that way. The one thing that surprises me, though, given it's the High Republic, the droids should, in my mind, I thought the High Republic droids were a lot more sophisticated. We do have this hover droid serving people, but we see a couple of droids and they all look quite similar to the later eras of Star Wars, which is interesting.
Yeah, I would say that is the one area where it does still sort of feel like the same time period, as if this story could be taking place at the same time as like the prequels per se. But I think everything else, they've done a really good job of making it feel like, hey, no, you're not even in Phantom Menace times yet. This is a little earlier than that. I know we were talking on our show a couple weeks ago, Johnny, myself, Randy, and Tommy, about how even like the costumes, like you immediately know, oh, this is a different era Star Wars. I really hope they take advantage of that.
Yeah, let's keep going and see what else we got going on.
Someone is killing Jedi. It doesn't make sense. What happened? I sensed the darkness.
That short fight scene there,
Yeah,
I hope we get to see some more like that throughout the whole series. It's quite reminiscent of like a wuxia style like kung fu film, and I want more Jedi fights like that. I want force sensitive kung fu. I think it'd be great, and I've said this most of my life. That Clone Wars animated episode where like the old Clone Wars animated, where Mace Windu is running around punching through droids using the Force to like reinforce his
Jensen
fist.
and I just watched that recently.
Oh man,
Force on attack.
it is so incredible watching like fist fighting Force fighters. I would love some Jedi kung fu if we can get some of that.
We're going to get lots of it by the sounds of it. I was listening to I was reading an interview with the creator of the show, and she was discussing, she was saying how like in this time period, because the Jedi have been relatively unchallenged by any, massive threats in comparison to the prequel trilogy, that they don't feel the need to draw their lightsabers often. So like they will try to handle things without drawing their lightsaber into combat. if they're drawing their lightsaber, you know that they think it's a very serious situation, and so that's going to be interesting to be seeing a bunch of Jedi, but early on seeing a bunch of them be very hesitant about even igniting the saber. Right? That's something that I'm sure will become a discussion, like anything does these days. But I like that. I'm intrigued by it.
It's another return to the Kurosawa stuff, right? Like, why are you going to draw your sword to kill someone? Why would you waste your sword on someone who's unworthy of the edge of your blade? Why would you bother drawing your blade for that? I love that kind of idea, and bringing that into Star Wars more concretely, I think that's a great idea. Now, one thing I noticed in this still right now that we've paused, person in the back right looks a lot like Sidious. I understand it's just a bad angle, but could definitely pull a little bit of a Sidious on that character. One thing I'm really looking forward to is Lee Jung-jae, the Korean actor who's playing as what is it, Soul?
Squid Game?
Yeah, Squid Game. Yeah, as people would know him. Quite popular here in Korea. He's got Squid Game 2 coming up, but he's also got this, and by the looks of it, he's going to be a great character, just in terms of power rating, even like just stopping the foot in his head without really moving.
Sounds like he's a badass in the show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
By the way, I see there's some people in the chat and leaving a few comments. If it's anything not related to the trailer, we'll get to it after the trailer at some point. Feel free to flood the comments with any Star Wars or Dune related comments or questions you might have, and we will get to them. And if not, then just follow along.
This isn't about good or bad. This is about power and who is allowed to use it.
Isn't that the set from Ahsoka?
So
That's from Ahsoka, right?
So the one by the water, did you mean?
Yeah, it's that, or it's from.
It looks similar to something from The Last Jedi.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a set that they've been to before. It also kind of looks like there's a set. Did you ever watch the Foundations TV show based off Isaac Asimov's books?
No, I did not.
There's a scene that takes place in rocks just like this, like a pool and everything. It's a very popular set, it looks like, but yeah, very, very similar looking.
So a few things come to mind here. I think when the show begins, we're like 100 years from the Phantom Menace, but again, the show takes place in 2 different time periods, maybe even 3, but I know 2 for sure. So I do believe Palpatine is alive at some point during this show, but I don't think we're looking at Palpatine yet. But I do think we're looking at Plagueis being involved somewhere here at this point in time. And on our Legacy of Star Wars show, we mentioned his master, Plagueis Master, who's brought up, I think it's Tenebris or something like that, from the Plagueis novel. So I'd say both of those guys could be in play. I think this figure we're looking at here is someone along that lines. And then we have May, who's played by Amanda Stenberg, who I believe is the kid that's saying she sees fire, that's younger her. And I believe the other kid in the trailer is the dude from Chicago Fire that we see ignite the yellow lightsaber while they're walking through a cave. And for those that don't know it, where are we here? Where is that part?
Running through the forest, or
right here. Okay, so that's X-23 from Logan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they got a really, strong cast.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting to see how well they use everybody as well. It looks like there's potentially a large amount of the budget going into the cast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Lee Jung-jae is quite a popular actor. I can't imagine they got him for low rates. Carrie Ann Moss, I mean, at the same time, it's Star Wars, right? It's one of those things that I feel like statistically, a lot of actors have just wanted to be in Star Wars. So could be going that way as well. We won't know until after the fact, anyways.
All in all, what do you think of the trailer, dude? Did it get you more excited for the series, which is only, I mean, 2.5 months away, basically? Or yeah, no, 2 months away. It's like June 4th, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, it's just about 2 months away. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm more excited. I'm cautious to say I am excited, and I think part of that comes from just how things have gone for Star Wars, where in the last year especially, I've had to let things kind of sit for a little while, let them fully release, let the press digest it all, and just shut all that off in my head and then get to it. I got to Ahsoka 7 months later, 6 months later. It was a while, right? And I enjoyed my time in Ahsoka, just taking it a little bit at a time, going my own speed without any pressure from the outside. And I think that a lot of people could benefit from not necessarily putting things off for 6 or 7 months, but trying to remove the press and the response of the public away from their media. So going into this, I don't necessarily have high expectations, but I don't have low expectations. I will watch it, and I hope it starts out well, because there is an opportunity for this to go quite well, I think.
Yeah, I want it to be great. Ahsoka could have benefited from a bigger budget. That would have been nice, but you can only put so much money into these shows. I do wonder, and we've talked about it on our other show. We, the group of guys that I'm on here weekly with talking Star Wars, we're all a little worried about the runtime. Leslie Headland's already come out and said, yeah, they're between 30 and 40 to 45 minutes, and you only get 8 episodes. But my worry is, it's not like a 1-character show. It's not a 2-character show. Hello. Sorry, it's 1 second, guys.
No. It's yeah, so 8 episodes. And then I guess the issue with these 40-minute episodes as well is frequently the credit run times end up being like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, that's not a 40-minute show. People need to, directors and like anyone involved in it, need to stop counting credits as runtime. Did I say start? I meant stop. They need to stop doing that. I don't remember if I said stop.
Well, the big thing is this is an ensemble show, right? It's not just one character.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're only going to have 4 hours,
jumping time periods,
like, it's some characters are going to be, shortchanged. There's just no way around that. Like, when you're doing an ensemble show, and I'm not trying to judge it before we see it, because I want this thing to be great, and I hope it is. But when you're doing an ensemble show based on, in fantasy, you really got to take the Game of Thrones route and give these things 10 episodes and nearly a 1 hour runtime for certain episodes, if not longer. And hey, if an episode justifies only being 40 minutes, then only make it 40 minutes. But like, you care more for characters if you're spending more time with them and if that time's utilized properly. If you're only spending a short amount of time with a character, you can have as much of attachment as you want. It still doesn't beat spending more time and spending more of the journey with someone, or in this case, many of someone's. So I do think it faces that challenge. But other than that, I'm really excited for the show, and I'm cautiously optimistic. Dustin says, I hope they don't make Obi-Wan season 2. First season had some great moments, but looked laughably bad at times, and how they didn't focus on Vader and Obi-Wan. The whole series is a joke. I like the story they told. I do not think it was executed the best. I think when you're doing a Obi-Wan Kenobi show that Darth Vader is going to be in, and you've advertised it as such, that's something you put your money behind. And it's been the cheapest show they've made so far for Disney Plus, which is a problem for me, a big one. and it's just, it starts at the top, right? Obi-Wan got the love that Andor got.
I think it goes to show that. Sorry, you go ahead. You finish up your point. Sorry.
No, I just say Obi-Wan should have got the love Andor got. Like, you watch
Mhm.
Andor and you see how much care and thought is put into that. And Obi-Wan goes right back to the same problem I believe you had, where it's like the lightsaber physics. I noticed they changed a bit in Ahsoka, which I like.
Man.
But in Kenobi, it's like watching Sting the wrestler swing his baseball bat around.
Yeah, I think I compared it to a baseball bat when we watched it, especially when he was attacking the stormtroopers and just wailing on them, just like beating them. Like, what is it going to do? You swing through them, as we've seen every single time. It's not like their armor is suddenly better in that era, because we see it work later on. But I think it goes to show that the lack of faith that, and very closely borrowing a quote from Star Wars in that one, the lack of faith that Disney had in fans of an older generation for Star Wars, because it seemed like, because having Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen come on, like, that is all hands on deck. The fans would flock to that, but it almost seemed like they were just like, no one's going to watch this. Only the old people will. And that's not a lot of people. Let's basically drop the budget on that, put the budget in other things that would be for new audiences, younger audiences. And it's a real shame, this lack of support. And it goes back to pretty much what I said at the beginning of when we started talking today. There's this extreme lack of support and alienation of the fans, where we're not allowed to have fun. It's not fair.
No, I can't argue that, man. I agree completely. Dustin asks, who is the villain in this show? Is it just some unknown Sith? Could we be getting Darth Bane or some other ancient Sith? So there was a rumor, and I want to stress this is a rumor, so please don't say that I'm saying that this is going to be in the show. I'm not saying that. But there was a rumor that the show is supposed to touch on some ancient Sith characters. What that means, I don't know. It could be someone reading the history of a character. It could be a holo. Who knows? But that it is supposed to touch on ancient Sith characters, which I really dig. In terms of the overall villain, it's going to end up someone on Palpatine's line, more than likely. Closer to it. Not him himself necessarily, but I think Plagueis is absolutely in play to be the ultimate guy right now who's behind the curtain. But my guess from the trailer is it's that the May character that we're going to be following. So a lot of these characters are new to us, right? Like, also, please don't expect to see much of Yoda. I do think he's going to pop up somewhere. This is your chance to have a different looking Yoda, but it can't be early and it can't be too late. It's got to be somewhere in the middle so that the characters you're building the show around aren't getting robbed. You put Yoda in episode 1, that's all they're going to want to see for the next 7 episodes.
If we get a Yoda, I have a feeling that I have a hope. If we do, it'll be a background character. Like, people are relying too much on getting the old characters back on screen, and I get it. It's great, and the emotional reaction with the reveal of Luke Skywalker and Mando, like, that was extremely emotional, extremely well done. But it doesn't have to happen in everything. And maybe it's unfair of me to say that, because Luke Skywalker has a lot of weight to him for a lot of us as fans. And I guess for some people that character was Yoda, not Luke. So maybe it's unfair of me to say that and taking it away from them, that emotional possibility. But I think what drives people to get Yoda is the love for Grogu and then seeing Yaddle as well. And that's why they want Yoda. It's because they've now seen 2 extra Yoda species characters, and like, well, now we need young Yoda. Now that you've justified that they could do it, let's do it. And it's not enough reason.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. let's shift gears here. The Phantom Menace is coming back out in theaters, and they're being smart with this one because not only are you going to get to see the Phantom Menace, I believe, don't quote me, that you're getting the full version of the pod race in the movie. So I believe that's like the 14-minute cut of the race. But you're also getting a first look at the Acolyte when you go to see this, which won't be a trailer, but more than likely 10 or 12 minutes of the first episode. Might not be the first 10 or 12 minutes, but it is supposed to be an extended preview. And the sneaky thing they're doing to stop people from going in, seeing the preview and leaving, is they're not showing it until after the Phantom Menace. So you have that. Dude, I have to say, we'd been talking about for a long time that we thought the Phantom Menace would get a re-release for its 25th anniversary. Sure enough, it is. I fucking love this poster. Now, we're kind of divided on the weekly show we do, but for me, this is the best Star Wars poster I have seen in a long time. What's your take on the poster?
I'd agree. I really like this. It captures everything that the whole movie's about. Yeah, like I'm just kind of digesting it now. Here in Korea, Star Wars isn't as popular, so seeing things like posters and stuff released in Korean media doesn't happen. If it comes here, one thing I am going to be doing is getting the Korean poster for it, because they look amazing when they do it. The Dune 2 poster, I'm gonna have to send this to you actually, so that maybe you can show this when we get to it. In Korean, it looks so great. Everything is so centered beautifully in terms of text. So I would love to see how this pans out in Korean if they do manage that. It's also just great seeing Qui-Gon and Obi. Just like, this is one of my preferred Star Wars movies, and if for the prequel series, this is actually probably my favorite of the three. And I feel like that's a controversial opinion because this is also the one that stars or has most of Jar Jar Binks in it, which I know is a contentious issue, but I personally liked Jar Jar, and seeing Ahmed Best get his reprisal in recent productions has been great for me personally. But the poster looks great. And what's that? Your green screen's in the way.
I'll take a picture.
Is it Star Wars?
No, but it is something that's just got.
I'll let you get that. The poster looks great. It captures everything that is the Phantom Menace. The weird part for me is like the long stretch of Mos Eisley on the right. I feel like they could have balanced it out with some more rocks on the right. But you got the Royal Starship there. You got the Trade Federation fleet. This is great. The only thing it's missing is the plains of Naboo where the Gungans are. Oh, you're sitting the poster over there? I see. Yeah. I hope it comes here. I'd love to watch it again on the big screen. But as far as I'm aware, it might not be. I was just looking on the Korean CGV website, which is like our movie theaters here, and I don't see anything for Star Wars. Oh, that's cool. That's the Dark Knight? No. Rises, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Big 4K UHD collector sets. They're imports, actually. They weren't made available in North America, and so you got to order them from across the seas. But it's like these big sets. You can get you buy them individually. Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises. I do not have the Dark Knight because they're all sold out, and the secondary market is ridiculous. But it's like this massive collector's thing. Comes with storyboards from the movie, art cards, a bunch of other things as well. So It's badass, and then it came with that double-sided poster. So, thought that'd be fun to show off.
That's cool.
Yeah, I hope it does come to your neck of the woods. I know a lot of places don't have listings yet. Even
I mean, it's still early here too.
Yeah.
Korean. Go ahead.
Landmark up here has put theirs up. You can find like Phantom Menace on Cineplex websites, but you can't actually buy tickets for it on Cineplex. I'm excited. I think right now the plan is Johnny, myself, my oldest Zachary, and a few others are going to go see it in theaters, and really, thoroughly looking forward to that. Obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing the Acolyte footage, but I haven't seen the Phantom Menace on a proper movie theater screen. Not to knock the drive-in, but I seen the Phantom Menace at a drive-in in 1999. So,
I mean, but that's real pod racing, right? Sitting in the car, yeah, come on, Eddie, woo!
I'm really excited to see it on the big screen for the first time. I didn't see the 3D re-release either, so I'm excited for this. Also, apparently every other Star Wars movie will be releasing in movie theaters on May the 4th.
Wow.
Now, what I don't know is if you have to watch the long-ass marathon thing, or if there will be individual releases of those movies on May the 4th. If it's the marathon thing, I'm out. The Phantom Menace you can see by itself, that I do know. But if you can choose the movies individually to see, I'm definitely going to find a screening of Revenge of the Sith again, see that on the big screen, because that was I mean, you just gave your opinion on the Phantom Menace, like, oh yeah, that is
No.
in this household.
I will say Revenge of the Sith does well on big screen.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith was one of my favorite cinematic experiences, and I definitely wouldn't have time to go see them all. And I've seen Empire and Return of the Jedi recently. So Revenge of the Sith would be the one that I really try to go to my way to go see.
I think Revenge of the Sith had a sour experience for me because I knew at that time it was the end. And
the saga is complete was part of the marketing.
I thought walking out of the theater, I'm like, well, damn, that's a big chapter of my life just done, and it felt sour leaving. So I think going into it again, maybe my opinion would change seeing it on the big screen again. But because I now know that's not the case, but that definitely soured my experience.
I would say the Phantom Menace is the Star Wars movie that has grown the most on me over the years.
Good.
And I would say second to that is The Last Jedi. The more I sit with that, the more I look back at it and go, you know what? A lot of this was quite good. Now, there are still creative choices that I don't agree with. And if I can go on a Last Jedi bit here for a second, I love the set design for Canto Bight. It's not like they cheaped out. They put a bunch of money in that. It's just, it feels like a comedic cartoon the entire time they're on Canto Bight that kills me. Serves
no purpose.
Yeah. And story. Then, what's the actor's name that's part of that? The guy from Cesaro. I forget the fellow's name. If anybody has it in the chat. I don't even remember the character's name, but anyways, he's the guy that screws over Finn and Rose.
That's pretty telling, though, that we don't remember the name of the character.
Yeah, right? It's something silly. Everyone's like, oh, it's going to be Ezra growing up. No. Oh, boy. It wasn't that.
DJ?
Benicio
del Toro.
Yeah, Benicio del Toro. I just, those elements of the movie just kind of The way Luke receives the lightsaber, throwing it over his shoulder, just But then you look at the production design, man, the lighting, the cinematography, the sound design, and it's miles better than anything we get in Rise of Skywalker. But it's also miles better than almost everything we've gotten on the small screen for Star Wars too, just in terms of production quality. And I know some people might go, you get hung up too much on production quality, but you know what? it's not just that; it's the complete package. It's acting as well. Like Mark Hamill is fantastic in The Last Jedi. Not saying I agree with all the creative choices, but he's great. Like
I don't think he agreed with all the creative choices either.
as he said, he was playing Jake Skywalker in his mind. But like we've just finished, or we're about to finish rewatching House of the Dragon. We have one episode to go. You watch shows like that and Game of Thrones. For some people, oh my God, what's the Last of Us with Pedro Pascal was another one that was highly regarded. Like these are shows with incredibly big budgets, great cinematography, fantastic production design and sound design. But on top of all that, they're well written and they're well acted. And Star Wars just isn't close to hitting on a few of them at once, let alone all those things at once. And it makes me jealous as a Star Wars fan, really, because like to me, that's the level Star Wars should be at. And it's not.
I want to ask you at that point, real quick. A long while ago, we had a discussion on our opinions of TV shows versus movies and which one delivers the better package. And I think even then I said, I feel like I wish there were more movies, less TV shows. And I don't know if I agree on it anymore. I think I might be shifting more towards TV shows personally, but it does require a proper investment. And my biggest issue with TV shows was that you'd end up getting a lot of filler. And I felt that there was an art in telling a story and it's getting to the point, right? Not wasting frivolous time elsewhere. And we'll get to that with Dune Part 2, actually, because I got strong opinions on that. I really don't know. And maybe Dune is the reason why I'm swaying towards needing TV shows. But what's your opinion? Where are you? Have you changed from your opinion?
Yeah, you know what? A little bit. If we're just basing on Star Wars TV shows, right? Like, if we're going off what we've like, if we're just talking Star Wars movies versus Star Wars TV shows, and based on what they've given us outside of Andor, none of these shows have had as much time to breathe as they should. Things feel rushed at times. And I know you just mentioned just sort of get right to it, but like I need character development. I need to spend time with these people. You want me to care about characters that we're going to follow in Kenobi that aren't Obi-Wan or Anakin? Then let's spend some real time for them and allow us to care about them. Don't just tell us we have to care about them. That's my issue with it. And Star Wars TV shows has not, other than Andor, given anywhere near enough time to do that. It's not Game of Thrones. You're not getting the quality or the runtime of Game of Thrones. So if we're based just on Star Wars and that's the way they're going to continue to make these, then just give me movies.
When I say getting to the point, I don't necessarily mean ignoring character development. That is getting to the point. Getting the characters together on screen, working with the characters. That is getting to the point. What I meant more was like, don't waste time on Canto Bight. Don't set up a character for all this development in Rose Tico. Don't set up all this potential and then just wash it away. Right? There's this distraction in storytelling right now where everything needs to look cool more than tell cool, if that makes sense. Right? Like Rose she loses her sister, goes through all of this pain and this internal strife of what does it mean to sacrifice for the rebellion? What does it produce other than pain and grief? Her sister brought hope. And then Finn's like, I'm going to go sacrifice myself in the hope that the rebels can escape. And she stops him. And it's like, oh no. it was so close to getting the perfect message. And it's the point was lost because they would rather keep people alive to merchandise and stuff. Getting to the point would have meant sacrificing the character because the point was hope. Rebellions are built on hope. Literally out of Rogue One.
As I say, Rogue One, that's the one movie I look at, I go back and go, I wish I responded differently to that movie when I first saw it, because when I look back at the 5 Star Wars movies that they've released, I think it's the best of them all. I do, from start to finish. And because it doesn't feel like it has to be a modern day Marvel movie. It doesn't feel it's strapped down by the Disney limitations. It feels like it's allowed to be grounded and gritty, and hey, they all friggin' die, right? Like,
they got to the point. Yeah, it's a good movie. That's yeah, and so it seems like we're weirdly switching places on that, because I remember you were into the TV shows and I was into the movies. And it
I
seems
just
like
thought we were going to get more like
over.
Andor, right? Like Andor had 12 episodes. They weren't all an hour, but you were getting anything from 38 minutes to some of them close to an hour. And when there's 12 of them, that makes a big difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So things had time to breathe. The other shows haven't. I liked Ahsoka, but even I felt like, okay, great. We'll transition here into Ahsoka in a second. Johnny says in 2024, there are more original TV shows than there are movies. In my opinion, nearly every blockbuster movie is either a sequel or a remake. I mean, Happy Gilmore 2, which is coming, is an example of that, right? Like,
that's a thing.
That's a thing. It started out as this rumor like a year ago, shot down. Then it was brought back up by the actor that played Shooter McGavin. And then people thought he was talking out of his ass. And 2 days later, there's, I think, Deadline reporting that, no, it's real, script's done, and it's going to be a Netflix thing. So I will stand on record saying you could have sold me on a Shooter McGavin spinoff movie that's just stupid and funny, and I would have followed. I'm really worried that this is going to be shit like the Dumb and Dumber sequel. So it's probably going to be shit, but here's hoping it's not. Sorry to be so cynical, but anyways, Ahsoka, man, we didn't get too much of a chance to talk about that. I felt like it didn't get a chance to breathe at times, but all in all, Balin friggin' Skull.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's gonna make season 2 tough. He delivered so well to that character, and what a great character too. Just well written, well presented, so stoic on screen. I don't know. I gotta say, he's probably my favorite part of the show. In all honesty, I know that a lot of people really like Ahsoka, but yeah, like that definitely sucked to find out about. Per the story, to me, it was a story. It worked. We've talked about the whole Grisk and extra galaxy and the replacement of the Yuuzhan Vong, where I'm like, Yuuzhan Vong, please. That's what I want. I didn't want the Grisk, but I get that Disney's going to rewrite stuff. So this whole story for me personally, this whole arc, going to another galaxy, coming back, it's like, if you're going to another galaxy, just stay in the galaxy and just go that way. Don't leave and come back. And then what was the point of going in the first place? It's kind of the Canto Bight thing for me, right? Why would they have to leave the galaxy? Why couldn't they just keep going past the outer rim into the unknown spaces? Why did they have to introduce this whole concept of galaxy jumping? I'm sure I hope there's a reason for it. Otherwise, it just feels like lazy storytelling to me. But did I enjoy it personally? Yeah. It took me a long time to get into it. As I said, it took me several months before I even picked up Ahsoka. Thrawn, we'll get to Thrawn after. How about you share what your your first opinions were as you went through it?
I think the series was really good. Again, I still have the same production issues that I have with a lot of them. I thought it was inside baseball, but for me, I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, so that worked. but I was acknowledging all the time while we were live doing reviews to it that, hey, like, this is really working for me, who gets a lot of the hidden references that are in these shows because I've read this book or that book. But for the average audience member trying to tune into this show and follow along, I could see why they never picked up on this show. I mean, Hayden Christensen was absolutely mind-blowingly good in this show. I loved everything they did in episode 5 with him and the little bits he gets in other episodes. Again, that's another one though. Like, as cool as it was really held back by lack of budget. I dig the other galaxy thing, but to be there and then be gone, like, I get it. Ahsoka and Sabine are there, and Balin's there, and Shin's there, and obviously something's going to go. Obviously, the big reveal there at the end is it has something to do with Mortis.
Yes.
What they do there, who knows? It's going to play into Dave Filoni's cinematic movie when it comes out. So, but it's believed they're going to do Ahsoka season 2 first. So, like, I do think all this is still leading to, as much as I'd love for it to be the Yuuzhan Vong, I don't think it's that. I think it's all leading to the Grisk. There are hints of the Grisk in Ahsoka based off things that Thrawn says. And I like Thrawn. I get people are body shaming Lars Mikkelsen for being a little bigger, but it's just fuck off with that. Like, come on.
Not everybody needs to be Captain America physique, Right. I really appreciated how Thrawn looked because to me, he felt so real. It was like I could have put him on the set in the original trilogy and be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Looks like he fits. And that worked really well for me, I found. I felt that he would have perfectly just matched up there.
My only issue was a character like Thrawn you need to spend time with.
Yeah.
And also, like, big strategic battle stuff, right? We didn't get to see any of that in this, really. Not really, anyways. And we just didn't get enough time with him, right? Obviously, there's ample time for him to come back. My guess is Thrawn is going to be at the very end of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So, it would make sense because they've made their way back, and that's supposed to lead into the Filoni movie, whatever that ends up getting titled. So,
Thrawn does need his own series, though. For fans who are not used to him, he needs to have on-screen strategy and not just showing up at the ends of things and then the explanation being off-screen. He strategized. Trust me, we wrote it. Like, no, we need to see that to believe it, and that. I would hate to be the writer for that because that's got to be one of the most intimidating things if they know what they're going into.
I really, really enjoyed Ahsoka in the series. I enjoyed Hera when we got time with her. I enjoyed Sabine up until a point. I thought the fella playing Ezra was fantastic. It felt like Ezra. It's like,
yes.
It's like, oh yeah, that's Ezra, right?
That's on screen animated to real life. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. It was great casting. Balin's the standout for me. Like, there's no like MVP by a mile. Yeah. Has season 2 been confirmed? Yeah, they have confirmed season 2 at this point. So that happened, I believe, when they were doing some Acolyte stuff a couple months ago. So, yeah, it's coming. I believe right now they're targeting filming it next year, which means you're looking at a more than likely a 2026 or late 2025 release for Ahsoka season 2. So yeah, I'm excited. Again, some of my issues are just the same as the other series, man. Lack of time. Thrawn didn't get anywhere near enough time.
8 episodes isn't enough.
No, it's not. Not when you're only giving them half an hour episodes at times. Like, it's just not.
Yeah, if it's 8, a movie definitely goes better, for sure. If it's a TV show, it needs to be it's got to be 48 to an hour plus per episode, not including credits. And that's kind of where I'm leaning for the TV show at this point. It's like we kind of need that room to tell story, because what ends up happening is that when we do get movies, they cut stuff, and they cut important stuff that is talked about and then never displayed. Whereas in TV shows, even if it's like a minute sequence, we generally get it. But even still, the show did suffer from a clear, in my opinion, lack of direction sometimes. Not a bad show though.
Yeah, I thought Filoni overseeing it was the right call, but I think Filoni needed to be directing it more, because I believe he only did 2 episodes. He did the Hayden one,
First and fifth, yeah.
And I just think, you know, you can oversee everything you want, but it doesn't mean that the person who's directing the episode is gonna, you know, bring you your vision the way that you see it, right? So I know it's a lot to do, and he's now like the CCO or COO there now at Lucasfilm. So basically anything that comes out runs through Filoni first now, which is a good thing. I do think it's a good thing, but until you're willing to increase budgets and change the way that you do things, like I seen a quote from Kathleen Kennedy a few weeks ago when it comes to recasting popular characters. She's like, "Oh no, we learned our lesson with that. We can't do that." It's like, no, that's not the fucking lesson to take. You one of the greatest Hollywood producers ever. I'd never take that away from her, but that's not the fucking lesson to take. Like, you're an idiot if that's like, the actors and the performers should never be more important than the character. And guess what? They would tell you the same thing.
Yeah. I think there's plenty of actors who would say just replace me then, rather than move on. For the exception of a few, I know James Earl Jones allowed AI reconstruction of his voice instead of having another person replace him.
Yeah, I believe that's like a lifetime deal with Lucasfilm.
He did, and that to my knowledge as well. And it's not to knock him in any way, but it is one of the situations where it's like, could they have replaced him? I don't know. That's a tough one because it's a voice. But you know, AI can do what it can. Dustin's asking, what's your favorite new character from the recent shows? He says Queel or IG-11 are his, and Grief was great too. Do the magic hand thing, baby. Grief. Good character.
My cop-out answers, I guess it'd have to be a new character. I was going to say Thrawn, but he's not technically a new character. I can't even say the droid from Ahsoka, although I really dug him. Because he's in Clone Wars.
He was a good character. Yeah. Loved his interaction with Ezra, by the way.
You know, it's probably Grief Karga, to be honest, because he's kind of like a other universe Talon Card. It's not Talon Card, but there's a lot of similarities there between the two characters. Then obviously Carl Weathers, you know, rest in peace to him and Ray Stevenson. It's been a hard year. It's Carl Weathers. I mean, he's a legend.
I don't know. I don't know who my favorite character would be. That's, you know, it's weird. I've not picked a favorite character for any of the new stuff, really. And I normally I think I would intrinsically pick someone just inherently, but I've just not. Hu Young's great, not new. David Tennant as well, voice, which is just a great choice there. Balin, maybe, just because, again, like, great character, well written, well founded, interesting character. I think Balin Skull would probably be who I would choose, just given everything that we've had.
I'd like to change my pick.
Yeah,
change mine to Balin as well.
he's great. He's interesting. He might be one of the most interestingly unique and well-written characters that we've had in a long time for Star Wars. Yeah, that's a good question. I got to think more of that for sure. Do you want to show the Korean poster for this? I sent it to you in Discord. I think the Korean poster looks epic. Actually, I have it. Well, I have the English poster, but I got a lithograph of the IMAX right here. I sent it on Discord. Do you have? Yeah, that first one there. First one. And it's literally just the word, like the Korean characters there are literally just the name Dune, and how they would pronounce with like a YUN kind of sound. But it just looks, if you don't know Korean, it looks like it's an alien language, and you could totally be like, yeah, that's how they write Dune in Fremen, of course. You know, I love that poster so much.
So, what did you think of the movie, man? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. I have my thoughts. I would like you to go first. I went first. So
I'm going to say something very, very unpopular. It was not better than Dune 1. In fact, I think that the soundtrack was strongly lacking. Dune 1, I walked out like, I'm going to go listen to the soundtrack. Dune 2, I was like, was there a soundtrack? I felt it was so rushed. It was such an unfortunate disappointment for me. I walked out with my friend and we went for a walk, and just there's good in there. There's good. The costume department, incredible. Florence Pugh, incredible. Christopher Walken, why? I saw him. I laughed out loud when I saw him as the Emperor. I laughed out loud in the theater because I'm like, this has got to be a joke. Any other person, they could have walked outside the studio and hired any random old guy. In fact, the Emperor is also to be young. It was just, there were choices made. But there is good there. Stilgar might be one of the best characters in the whole movie. And I loved his whole, like, he is Lizao Gaib. And then Timothée is like, no, I'm not. Paul's like, I'm not. He's like, of course he's not Lizao Gaib. Lizao Gaib would only be so humble, you know? He's such a funny zealot of a character.
That is great.
I loved it. Stilgar was a great character. But there's stuff that they just chose to cut. And I think it really hurt the movie. They ask him, or they tell him, if you want to be one of us, if you want to truly be part of the Sikh, if you want to be part of the Fremen, you must wander across the desert and survive. He's like, okay. He sets out, and that night, there's Chani waiting for him. And it's not an illusion. It's really her. And then we don't get to see the rest of the desert. And then she's like, here's a very specific way to use a moisture evaporator from the sands of Tatooine. I know Tatooine was inspired by Dune, but here's how to extract moisture from the sand. And they show the close-ups on it and everything, and then they never do it. They never show us it later in the movie. It was useless information. I'm convinced there was a cut scene where they needed water, and he went and got water because. Why would they bother showing us that? It was like the opposite of a Chekhov's gun. They close up on it and it's useless. There were decisions that they made which took away from the movie. And when the director's cut, I hope whatever was removed is back in, because I think it'll make more sense.
I loved the first movie. I thought it was great. I thought the cinematic experience was so much fun. It was also more than just one planet, so we got more than just the desert.
But we got more than one planet in Dune too.
Barely. Where
the Harkonnens,
where House Atreides comes from, which looks fantastic, by the way. But yeah, like you, I kind of thought, hey, the score is lacking in this a lot. And even though it was a 2 hour and 45-minute movie, I felt like we wasted a ton of time lingering on some shots that didn't need to be lingered on for so long. and they were cutting stuff out of other areas, which was very clear and evident, and to a point that like when I guess you could call it a big battle at the end is happening, like
It's not a battle.
it feels rushed.
Yeah, it's not a battle. It's also really disjointed. The worms break through, and then the Fremen come out of the sand in front of the worms. I'm like, how did they get there? How were they in there already? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's. I gotta tell you, man. I went to see it with Jade and my sister-in-law, and we all went to see Dune 1 together. So we wanted to see this one together. We all left Dune 1 really happy. We all left Dune 2 going, yeah, I kind of wish we went to see another movie tonight. And that killed me. It sucked to say that because I had high hopes. I think one of the issues is I hadn't watched it since I'd seen Dune 1. Like, I never rewatched Dune 1. My only time I seen it was in the movie theater. So, and that was like opening weekend. So, like, I was very removed. So, trying to remember back to certain things probably wasn't the wisest decision on my behalf. But overall, I kind of just found it disappointing. Like, there's great production quality there for sure. Like, the production design and cinematography is amazing, things that Star Wars needs to be trying to achieve at this point in time. But and great acting as well. But outside of that, man, like, I got to tell you, this was one of the bigger cinematic disappointments that I've had in some time.
It's a beautiful movie. They do practical sets. One thing that I really loved seeing, there's this sand dune, which is right against a sea, right against the ocean, actually. And you see Paul standing on the top of the sand dune, and you see water, and it looks so fake in the movie. It's a real place on Earth, and it's gorgeous. And so, like, the sets were nice, costumes were really well done. I felt that the representation of Jessica was weird, at times very weak, at times evil. And like at the very beginning, when the Harkonnen are coming and Paul and Jessica are hiding and the Harkonnens walking up to them, she has the voice and she's scared. There's one Harkonnen. She just has to use the voice on him. He kills himself. Done. Right? And then instead, Paul goes to fight him and she comes from behind him. It's just, there's really interesting cuts and jumps that are not explained. And I struggle with it. And I think part of the reason I struggle with some of the characters as well is, especially in the case of Zendaya, I struggle a lot personally with seeing her as Chani and not as Zendaya. And I'm not knocking her.
That's the problem when you start to cast too many well-known actors. And I'm not saying everybody has to be unknown, but like,
but I don't think it's a fault of their fame. I think it's social media. I think we just have too much of an interpersonal relationship, not interpersonal, parasocial relationship with them. We're so used to seeing them everywhere as their human self, more so than I think in like the 90s and 80s when we'd see them in magazines, maybe on a talk show, but it's not accessible every single day on YouTube Shorts and stuff like that. I think they're just too everywhere, and I really struggled with that.
Yeah, I don't know anything that happens in Dune 3, and I know that it A, may never happen, and B, if it does happen, it's going to be a while.
It's already been greenlit, I believe.
It sounds like, from what I heard, though, Denis Villeneuve is going to take time. He's not, like, the studio's given them the okay to go do it, but Denis Villeneuve's not sure that he's going to at the moment, and that if he does, we could be looking at a 4, 5, or even 6-year wait for the next one. Which makes me go, and again, I don't know how the novels play out, but I'm guessing part 3 would include his sister that we see in the future forward. So
she was meant to be in this movie. She's meant to be like a fully fluent 2-year-old girl running around. It's a very weird choice, I know. But keeping Jessica pregnant actually for it and then talking through the womb, I think that's actually a good choice. Better than having a 2-year-old running.
It's a little weird at times.
It is, but I think it was a better choice than a fluent 2-year-old. Right. If I had to choose between the two, her, smeagling to her stomach, I think was a little better than probably what would have been a fully digital human. Right. It's just with how things go.
Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, we're about 90 minutes into this thing, and I just looked at the time. We're nearing midnight for me. So we are going to call that an episode. Hopefully we can get back on here in a month's time or so and do something else. If not, we'll try to do something around the time the Acolyte's coming out. If Ian ends up watching it, will the rest of us watch it anyway? And if not, we will definitely have review episodes for the Acolyte available on the channel. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Phantom. Oh, you know what I've been playing, man? And there's videos of it on the channel. I'm going to talk about the Phantom Menace, the PS1 Phantom Menace game. And let me tell you, the controls on that thing are a pain in the ass. They're so touchy, but that's been fun to play through. And I'm almost at Tatooine. Naboo seems to be lasting forever. So
it does. Yeah, it's a good game though.
It was one of my favorites growing up as a kid. I don't know if I feel that way now though. But anyways, hopefully we'll have Ian back on in the near future. To everybody else out there, happy Easter. Have a great long weekend. You might see me back, hell, even tonight playing the Phantom Menace. Maybe you won't. I don't know. But anyways, take it easy. Take care. Have a great weekend. And we will see you next time.